Cooking games have been around the gaming industry for decades, offering players a chance to whip up delectable dishes without ever having stepped foot into a kitchen. Over the years, the different cooking games offered to players has changed drastically, from flash games like Papa's Pizzeria, which I'm sure you spent countless hours during your lunch breaks playing at school, to stressful management games like Overcooked and Plate Up, to now more cozy and narrative-based games like we've seen with Venba. Today, I wanted to explore if cooking game is even a valid genre, if there's so many different ways that cooking can be expressed in a video game. Also, how does the player's expectations of these games lead to a satisfying or disappointing player experience? Hello friends, my name is Helena. I am the producer at CozyCat Games. We are a team of 4 women based in Montreal, Canada, developing a cozy baking game called Madame Fifi's Bakery. So first I wanted to cover a little bit of game theory and the different player expectations in general when people enter video games. This is non-exclusive to cooking games, literally any type of game. In game theory, there's an interesting breaking down of the different player archetypes and expectations entering a game called the Bartle's player types. So these 4 categories are killers, achievers, socializers, and explorers. I think that whatever category you enter as a player drastically affects what your expectations are of this cooking game that you might be playing. If you find yourself being someone that wants to slay all the demons, who wants to be the best in the world and has this kind of like drive to be the best in this gaming land, then you're probably a killer archetype. Killers tend to prefer single player games because they want to win as a solo person. They don't really care necessarily about having other people on their team, but some killers can. It just tends to be more often than not that killers want to be the sole best person. Now, if you find yourself being someone who wants to achieve all of the Steam achievements and always wants to explore all the possible recipes and do everything, then you're probably an achiever. The achievers really like games that challenge them and allow them to be the best version of themselves. But contrary to the killers, instead of wreaking havoc and killing everything, they care more about getting the full game experience and unlocking everything and making sure that they finish that game having completed every single thing that they're able to. If you find yourself frolicking around in the game and not really caring so much about being the best, more so just about enjoying yourself, then you could either fall into the category of being a socializer or an explorer. And I'd say that the main difference between the two is whether if you want to explore the stories of other people or explore the stories of the land. So socializers tend to really like multiplayer games, but they could like really narrative-driven games if they have a lot of NPCs that you can discover their stories. So in that way, you're socializing with the characters. Whereas explorers, they're similar to completionists in that they want to explore and do all of the possible things that the game allows them to do, but they're more so focused with their own enjoyment rather than having the achievements on Steam and having said that they did everything. It's more so about their innate or their inner feeling of satisfaction and gameplay experience. They don't need to do everything, they just want to do the things that make them happy, and they go down these little rabbit holes. So maybe try to figure out what player archetype are you? Let me know in the comments, and now we're going to explore how does the different archetype that you are dictate which cooking game you like to play. If you identify yourself as the killer player archetype, someone that wants to watch the world burn, I think that you would best prefer cooking games that are high stress and that allow for a certain level of mastery. And people would call these games really fun and addictive, but really like messy and stressful. Games like Overcooked. Overcooked is incredibly stressful and challenging, and it's really messy. It is multiplayer, so that allows for the killer to feel like they have reached the top of a pyramid. Killers really like high-stress environments in which they can fail quickly, but also reach incredible success that's impressive to other people. Games like Overcooked really thrive in this way. Another game that personally I really disliked as a child was Cooking Mama. Cooking Mama is really stressful, easy to get things wrong, but you can be the best. I just have so many bad memories of Cooking Mama yelling at me because I cut my tomatoes in the wrong way. So I'm definitely not the killer archetype personally. These types of games serve killers well because it allows them to achieve something that's difficult to attain, and it allows them to achieve a certain level of mastery that gives them bragging rights. Next up, if you find yourself identifying with the Achiever player archetype, someone that's a bit more of a completionist in video games and other aspects of your life, then I think that you would best prefer management type games. Restaurant management and NPC management. Something like the old Flash game Papa's Pizzeria. In Papa's Pizzeria, there definitely is a certain level of challenge and mastery similar to what the killer's like, but it's a lot more achievable and slower paced. You get multiple customers at the same time, and a lot of the times they do order the same thing, so you can get the hang of things easily. There's a lot of different types of recipes that you can unlock, a lot of different types of customers and ingredients, and you can customize the kitchen based on whatever money you receive. So these are all things that the completionist values a lot. Another game that focuses a lot more on the actual management of the restaurant is Plate Up. In Plate Up, you have to manage the entire cafe and think of many things at once. You have to make sure no one is unhappy, and you have to run from section to section while still thinking about the finances and everything. Achievers really thrive with these types of games because it allows for them to feel like they've completed everything in a game. They can get all these different types of awards and these different types of clients and recipes and little things for their kitchen. And once they feel like they've done everything, they feel like they've fully gotten the experience that the developer intended them on having, which is what makes the completionist or the achiever feel their best when they play. Now, if you find that you really identify as the explorer player archetype, I think that you don't necessarily like cooking games, but more so games that have cooking as a mechanic in them, as a utility to further progress in the game's goals. A game that does this really well is Breath of the Wild. In Breath of the Wild, you cook because you have to. In order to reach certain areas, you have to have different buffs and different characteristics that you can only get by cooking. Also, there's no recipe book in Breath of the Wild. You need to forage and find the ingredients and experiment. This is something that the explorers thrive off of because they get to go without a script and just really find what they want to find and get the experience that they want to have. Another game that does this very well is Stardew Valley. In Stardew Valley, cooking is also a basic necessity in order to progress in the game. In order to become closer with the NPCs, you have to cook them their favorite dishes in order for them to feel closer to you. Also, to progress further in certain caverns, or if you want to have enough energy, you have to cook yourself up some snacks. Lastly, if you identify as a socializer player archetype, then you would best prefer games that use cooking to advance the narrative and to relax. A great new release which centers on cooking is Venba, and this game focused on Southeast Asian food, which is definitely something we don't see as often. It is narrative based, and the cooking scene in this game is used to push the narrative of this family's story. You get to find out their lives through the food that they cook. The art is also gorgeous, and the sound design and story is really an immersive experience and relaxing. This is the complete opposite from what the killers prefer. Another game which uses cooking to get closer with the NPCs is Spiritfarer. In Spiritfarer, you cook the meals that the spirits best preferred in their time alive in order to unlock the full story and really get to know what their lives are like. It has so much meaning because it's based on all their unique characteristics and traits. Without the cooking mechanic, it wouldn't be as full of a game experience, I would say. And socializers love anything that allows them to feel closer to the game environment and game world that they're playing in. So after having explored the Bartles player archetypes theory and the different types of cooking games that a player might prefer based on where they fall, I'd argue that cooking game isn't even a valid genre. I think that there's just way too many types of cooking games for it to be one thing. I think that a cooking game can be a management game, or a cooking game can be a strategy game, or a cooking game can be a narrative game. But I don't think that cooking game explains enough of what the game is for it to be something that people like. Like, you don't just say, I'm a cooking gamer. Like, that doesn't make sense. So I think that it's an interesting topic to think about. I did mention it in the beginning, but we are developing a cozy baking game. So all of these things are really interesting to us as we're developing. If you want to find out more about us and the game that we're creating, I have some video cards linked here. What are some frustrations that you've encountered in cooking games and the categorization of these games? Let me know in the comments. Let's have a little bit of a conversation about it. Have a great day, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.